2007. I'm sitting in my living room in New York City. My friend Nico Tavanisi, who did the documentary of the making of the fountain that's on the DVD, came up with this idea that for some reason, we'll try to be nice throughout this whole thing, the studio didn't want to go and do a voice commentary track, but we decided to put one out there and let people check it out, and hopefully you'll get something out of it. I promise not to talk too much about what the film's about and clear up any of the questions people have. I just talk more about some of the experience of making this film. As many of you may know, the movie took us about 6-7 years to make. It was a really long trip, and generally that happens to me all the time. You know, every time we sort of start a project, it's a difficult road. When we wanted to make a black and white movie about God and math, it was pretty tough to get people to give money to unproved filmmakers make something very experimental and strange. And then after Pi got a release and people were very interested in what we were going to do next, we sent them the book to Requiem for a Dream, and no one wanted to get involved with that. So the same thing sort of happened with The Fountain. It was a very long path, but it's been my main focus for the last 6 years, this film, and it's everything I wanted to do. I think the film always started off with this idea of taking sci-fi to a new and different place. I felt that science fiction had really been hijacked by techno-lust and movies that were really interested in gadgets, and I kind of feel like audiences we've all seen that and all done that, and I was more interested in kind of psychedelic sci-fi and inner space science fiction, kind of the science fiction we played around with in Pi. So one of the first things we thought about doing was combining history and the future. We like the idea of contrasting something really long ago with something really, really deep in the future. And so I started to think about historically which time periods really interested me, and I always knew I wanted to do something with a warrior. And for a long time, since I was since I was a teenager, I had really been into Mayan civilization and Mayan archaeology. When I was in college, me and a couple of friends drove a beat-up 1972 piece of shit car down to Belize, and on the way we got lost in a lot of the Mayan architecture, and since then I've kind of had this big fascination with that world, because it was a great civilization on the scale of something we live in today, yet it was completely disappeared. There was one moment when we were driving down a road across the southern Yucatan. There's this one road that basically crosses from west to east. And it's actually a modern-day road that's built on top of an ancient Mayan trading road. And on the side of the road are all these little tiny Mayan towns that have been abandoned for centuries, and really get very few visitors because they're pretty off the beaten track of tourists. But since we were driving down the road on the way to Belize, we stopped at a lot of them. And one night or one late day, we were at one of these places, and we were the first people to be there in over a year. And the sun was setting, and it was a small Mayan trading post, 4 buildings with a plaza in the middle. And back in the day, that plaza would have been filled with hundreds and thousands of people trading all different types of goods. But now, years later, it was empty. But what I noticed is right in the center of this plaza were all these ants, a whole civilization of anthills and ants, with long trails going off into the jungle surrounding and bringing back leaves and all different types of food and supplies. What was interesting to me, I kind of had one of those moments where, there's something so micro, representing something so macro, which was, this now a great civilization of ants had taken over, where a great civilization of humans had once lived and existed. But so it kind of stayed with me that there was all these different connections, and so when I started to think about what to do, what civilization to use, I started to look at the Mayans and all their cosmology stuff, because they were just fascinated by cosmologies. Their real power, the power of the priesthood and the royalty, was based on their knowledge of the stars, because they were able to predict celestial movements, and that type of knowledge allowed them the power over other people. So all